Hey guys, it's Amber from NotableInk.com, and today I'm mixing up my Copic coloring. I'll be stamping in some purple dye inks, and I'm also, instead of flicking and blending, I'm going to be putting colors adjacent to each other. So if you struggle with Copic blending, this might be a good technique for you. I have Aloha Pineapple here from Colorado Craft Company. It has a very large pineapple along with some decorative lettering, some individual pieces of pineapple, just a gorgeous stamp set from their Big and Bold line. Here I have a piece of 5x7 Curious Metallic Cryogen White paper. I really like to Copic color on this. It adds the most gorgeous sheen to your cards, a little bit of a shimmer, just really so pretty. Unfortunately, I didn't hit record when I was stamping this, but I stamped the image in Altenew Cosmic Berry first, which is a really bright purple, and then I partially inked up the stamp with Grapevine ink and stamped that down so that you have two different purples going on. You can mostly see the bright purple kind of at the top center of the flesh of the pineapple. So I pulled up an inspiration photo so that I have something to go by, so that I have an idea of where my shadows are going to go. And then I have a scrap piece of the Cryogen white over to the right there, and I'm just testing some colors that I think I might want to use. I'm going to start in the center of these little sections of the pineapple with E31, which is kind of like a tan beige color. I wanted to leave a bit of a highlight there, and I thought that would be easier for me if I just went ahead and blocked that out. Next, I'm going to drop in Y18 right above that. It's a really nice warm yellow color. And again, I'm not really blending these. I'm kind of dabbing them down. This is YR14. I'm just dabbing them down, and I'm kind of just putting them adjacent to each other. So it's kind of just stacking them almost like a layer cake and not really blending them together per se. So this is really super easy coloring here. Now I felt like I needed some higher contrast, so I'm going to bring in E44 and just drop that down right below the E31, which was that tan beige color. Next up, I'll come in with Y23, which is more of a golden orange, yellow orange, and I'll just put that at the bottom here. Now I do end up adding more color. This is E99, so I'm just going to deepen that up in that lower V on the bottom. And then ultimately, I just keep adding colors to this until I'm happy with it. Now, I took another look at my inspiration photo, and I could see down the center of the pineapple, kind of center to the right, it was darker in that area. So I needed to deepen up those colors there. I started this with a W3 warm gray marker. It wasn't enough, but I wasn't really sure where I wanted to go with that. So I'm going to pause on the bottom of the pineapple and move up to the leaves until I figure that out. So I'm going to do BG90. Again, I'm kind of blocking in some highlights. This is almost like a green-gray color, and I know it doesn't look much like a highlight, but I'm going to go so dark on the other half of the leaves that it is going to look like a highlight in the end. This is G29, and I'm doing just your normal flicks here. I am going to do some blending in the leaves, and they're nice and large, so it's pretty easy to get a blend in a large area. Here I have G07. I did want to brighten these leaves up and get a really rich, vibrant green. So the G07 is great for that. And I'm just blending the G29 out with that. This is YG03. This is probably my most used green marker. Pretty much almost every green color combination I use, I feel like I have the YG03 in there. And then I'll come back in with the BG90. I did lose a little bit of my highlight, which is okay. I'm just going to bring that back in. When you use a lighter color over darker colors, it tends to lighten it up a little bit, but you won't get back to that pure original color. So now we need to go back to the pineapple. So I know that I need greater depth of color here. So I'm going to come in with V09 in these lower V's of these sections. And this is going to add a lot of, it's kind of a vibrant purple, and it's going to add a load of depth down there. Now I wrote this down on my little scrap paper over there as V06. It's actually V04. And this is a beautiful purple. That's probably my favorite purple. It's a pretty orchid color. I love it. So I did do a little bit of blending with those. But you can see it's not like your typical flicking blending. I'm not trying to get a perfect blend. I decided to deepen up the shadows up at the leaves with the V04. And then I'll go back down to the pineapple. Again, I want to add a little more depth and shadow to make some of these sections darker, like it is in my inspiration photo over there. So I have YR07, and I'm kind of just dabbing that on, dotting it on with more of the side of my marker and pushing so that it's not just the tip. And dabbing that on to get kind of like a darker strip of pineapple down the center so that the two sides look like they're more highlighted. I will now come in with YR14 and just soften that out just a touch, just on the sections that are down the center here. Next up, I have Y13, and I'm using that to brighten up the sections on the outer sides. I felt like they were looking a little drab, considering that YR7 down the center was pretty bright. And then I'll just add a bit more shadow. This is the looks like the V04. Yeah, that's the V04. And here we have our finished pineapple. I love the effect of the purple ink from the stamping with those green leaves up top and how that melds into the sections below. I always like to look at the back of the Copic coloring. I think it's so fascinating to see what it looks like on the back side. And I decided to trim this down to 3.5 by 7 inches. So this started as a 5 by 7 piece of cardstock. And I trimmed it down to 3.5 because I really didn't want all that extra space over on the side. And I felt like with all that extra space, I would really need to do something more with the background. I didn't want to do a lot to the background because I have a tendency to sometimes ruin my cards with background business going on. So I wanted to kind of knock this back a little bit. So it's kind of like a mini slimline, or like a short slimline, a shorty. I don't know. Maybe there's a new term for that. So I'm just using the BG90. Remember, we used this as the highlight in our green leaves, and I'm just blocking out the bottom to ground the image. Now, it's usually with trying to create a shadow on the image that I've made that I get a little wonky. So I have the BG93 to add some greater depth to the shadow. I'm just trying to add that in and not get carried away. And then I'm blending that out with the BG90. And for whatever reason, I do it on both sides, which doesn't even make sense, I don't think. I don't know. I always get lost in the whole shadow situation. I tried to not get too much hung up on it, but I don't know. I feel like this is where things go astray for me usually. But in any case, I feel like that looks okay. So then I have, this is the YG03 Copic refill, and I'm just putting on a few splatters with that, just dropping it on. I'd never done that before. I thought I would try it out. I didn't love the effect of it, and so I'm going to add some more splatters with the 2 inks that I used to stamp the image. So that's Cosmic Berry, and then this is Grapevine. So you can see how different those colors look, and when I mixed them together, it created pretty much the shade that I wanted. So if you don't have the color ink that you're looking for, just stamp it twice with 2 different inks and mix your inks to get what you're looking for. And I'll just splatter some of that on to create a background. Before I did the splattering, I did do a bit of a background with a bead 000. I kind of put streaks of that on. You couldn't even see it. It was so light. So I just didn't include that in the filming. Here I wanted to create a sentiment strip, so I'm using the same greens that I used up top, just putting a few stripes of that on the same cardstock. So that's Curious Metallic Cryogen White cardstock. And I will trim this out. So when I trim it down, before I trim it down, I'll go ahead and stamp it. I'm using one of the stamps from the set. I struggle with heat embossing cinnamon strips, you guys. For me, I feel like my images are never solid. So what I wanted to do is re-ink my ink pad before I do this. So I just have the Wow re-ink tool there. It has a roller ball on it to get the ink on the ink pad, which is really handy. I've gone ahead and stamped it. I actually stamped it twice with the embossing ink. And then I'll sprinkle on some opaque white embossing powder. I did treat this with an anti-static powder tool first, And that is actually really good coverage. I think re-inking my ink pad makes a huge difference. I feel like this is the cleanest sentiment I've heat embossed in quite a while, so I was really happy with that. And then I'll trim this down, and I want it to have kind of a more organic top to it. So instead of trimming down the bottom, I'm just gonna fussy cut that along the edge of my marker. So it's a little bit wavy on the top. I think that adds a nice highlight and a little bit more of an organic feel. I went ahead and popped that up on some foam tape. Those are the Doris strips, and I'll have all of the supplies listed down below for you guys. And then I'm just gonna add a little bit of shadow. So I just have a regular pencil and a tortillon or a paper stump, and I'm just gonna blend out that shadow. I wanted to pop the pineapple forward a little bit more from the background. When you do this, you don't wanna outline your entire image. Just pick a few places where you feel like the shadow would be the deepest and add your graphite there. Here's the finished card. I think the purple ink to stamp the image really gives this kind of like a pop art feel. I was really loving this color combination, and I hope you guys do too. Be sure to check down below. I have a discount code. It's Amber10, the number 10, so that you can get 10% off if you purchase from Colorado Craft Company. Big thanks to Amy Kennedy for inviting me to guest design, and I will see you guys tomorrow with a Hugs and Pair video and post. Thanks so much for joining me today. If you enjoyed this video, please consider subscribing, liking, and ringing that bell so you don't miss any new inspiration. Here's a couple more videos for you before you leave, and I'll see you real soon.